And welcome everybody to the Loonacy podcast. I'm Tony. I'm here with Dave and Dave. Dave Stevens, Dave Sterling. I'm Tony Pervenanzi. We're coming to you today from OMNI Brewing in Maple Grove, where we have we've been watching the United game, boys.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we wanted to do this podcast after the game was over, but they had a little lightning delay.
Yeah.
So we had to start a little early. We are now in the 66th minute. We're down 2-0 at this point. But pretty much the season's over anyways.
And as before this match ends, Columbus already knows that they're through to the playoffs.
Well, exactly right.
Thanks to the Montreal Impact loss. So it really this second half doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean nothing.
So. And when you say little lightning delay, it actually ended up being over like an hour and 15 minutes total.
Yeah, it's significant.
So significant, huge lightning delay.
A lightning delay at the end of October, too. I mean, come on. So again, we're at OMNI Brewing. They've allowed us to come back. In case you guys didn't know, Dave and I did our second podcast from here. How many months ago?
Well, it was March.
It was March. It was cold. We had some snow.
Yep.
And so they allowed us to come back again, and we thank them for that. Dave Stevens and I both have gotten a flight. And
I have not yet.
And you have, Sterling, you got yours still, which is the sweetness.
Right.
But we got flights. I think you've got the soap, the hopful, the hug. The hug is one of my favorites. So
Hug It Out.
Hug It Out. The sour. It's a blackberry, the mango blackberry, I think.
Yeah, blackberry mango. It says
sour
here.
IPA. All fantastic stuff.
And actually, I started before. I haven't tried the flight yet. I just ordered it, but I actually started with the sweetness. What Dave is having as well.
We got a goal.
Oh my God! We got during this podcast.
It may be offside though.
Gotten a goal.
Most likely it's going to be offside.
They were claiming it was offside. Looks like
they restarted it.
They restarted, so it must be good.
Put it on the board.
Well, there you go. There's a live update for you.
Goal live up. Well, technically not live because this is recorded.
Well, this is
Yes.
live.
So everybody will see it, but
People may think it's live.
I think it's live.
So
yeah.
who knows? I don't know. We've all kind of sound a little excited about that, and maybe even hopeful for maybe stealing a point out of this game. Even though we just said it's a meaningless point, it would still be exciting.
Yeah, it's an away point.
Yeah.
Guys, we were talking about this before the podcast. We were watching this game, and I'm going, it's just been a downer type of couple weeks here for the Loons.
Oh, yeah.
It just has been, nothing's gone right.
And really, I think actually when we talked about this, you mentioned a couple months.
Yeah.
Because I think 2 months would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been terrible.
Before we dig into it too much, I just want to. We were on the beer before we got rudely interrupted by the Minnesota United scoring a goal. But we were on the beer. I was just saying I actually haven't tried anything off the flight yet. But I started, like I said, I started with that sweetness stout, which I really like. I'm a big stout fan. I think like David is as well. And this one is good. It's dark. And what I really like about it is it's a nitro beer. Nitrogenate. It's infused, so it gives it that extra creaminess, texture. And then the one I'm working on right now is actually the Shantytown, which is a nut brown ale. And actually, I go back to last podcast when we were at Dual Citizen Brewing. David had, I can't remember the beer you had, but you described it. It was kind of like, it tastes like you're eating a bowl of Cheerios.
Yeah, that was like the Kellogg.
The Kellogg?
Wasn't it? Was it the Kellogg?
I believe it was.
Yeah. Because it's definitely, I don't know. It just has that. It's maltiness. They describe it as a malt forward and a nutty, biscuity even with caramel flavor. So I thought Dave's comment was kind of appropriate to that beer. I love it. So yeah, it's very good.
I was a little upset when we walked in, boys, that they didn't have Loonacy on tap.
The beer that they named after our podcast, of course.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think it came up before the podcast.
I think it did too.
So, okay.
Yeah.
But it would have been appropriate to sit here and drink a pint of Loonacy.
Yeah. Before we get too far into it, though, I do want to congratulate somebody of our podcast here. David Sterling had a young baby boy the other day.
A young
baby boy.
I
Very young,
babies
actually.
are young.
Newborn. Oliver Thomas, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. And so Dave is in the 2-kid club, which welcome to that club.
And 2 kids under 3 club.
Oh yeah, that's another issue right there. Yeah. So he's not going to be on the podcast today. Oliver is not going to be here.
No. We're shooting for December, January.
Yeah, he might be in the podcast a little bit later.
Yeah.
I told you we need a new audience. I mean, that's the way it works. So let's get into these last two games, guys. Let's talk about last week's game, which was the last game at TCF Bank Stadium. 50,000 plus fans at the stadium. You guys were there.
Yes.
What was the atmosphere like at the stadium?
Yeah, so hashtag 50K to Midway. David, why don't you start us off and tell us your thoughts? Because we all got there fairly early.
Yeah, I got there, I think it was about an hour and a half early. There were just a lot of people milling around. They had their fan zone, which they were giving away free food, like I think it was like caramel apple something, some like mixed stuff. I didn't have any of it because the lines were too long. But they also gave away, you could get a scarf or you could get a beanie. I got a beanie, which the patch is already falling off of. So, Minnesota United, maybe if you're listening to this, you could reconsider that for next year.
Yeah.
Quality control, maybe.
Quality control.
Or maybe that's Target, actually. Target was the one handing them out.
Oh, so. Target, yeah.
And I guess when I say we all got there early, John Drisky, who was also at the game yourself, got there a couple hours early. I was there maybe an hour before kickoff, or an hour and a half before kickoff, and I had no hope of getting either the beanie or the scarf.
They didn't have anything?
Everything was gone by the time I got there. And I got there early. I consider an hour and 15 minutes prior to kickoff being fairly early.
I heard they got rid of stuff pretty quick. I think people showed up early and kind of made an early day out of the whole thing. It's the last time at TCF Bank. Why not?
And everything actually started at noon.
Yeah.
So it was 3.5 hours before the game.
And it was a beautiful fall day. I mean, it was a little crisp out. It was a little, 50 degrees maybe, but the sun was shining. It was just a beautiful day, and the atmosphere was amazing. Dave, like you mentioned, they had a DJ. Right in the open end of the field, they had like a concert, a little mini concert with so it just really added to the atmosphere.
Yeah, I mentioned to Dave that they should just do that all the time.
Have a DJ,
and maybe in the new stadium they will.
Yeah, and like
it was kind of cool.
The Minnesota Vikings have a house DJ who's at every single game. He has his kind of stand set up, and so it would be easy in Allianz Field, I think, to have that kind of a setup for sure.
Yeah. And I think the beginning of the game, that atmosphere continued. Obviously, the Loons came out looking like they were ready to play. We had a shot on goal in the first minute. But as usual, we decided to disappoint our fans.
Yeah, pretty much the last 2 months have been disappointing our fans.
Yeah, so, they gave up 3 goals in a matter of 20 minutes. Well, no, it's 20 minutes.
Yes.
But, of course, that went over the halftime.
Yes, it did.
And that's why, it's kind of sad sometimes when, the attendance was amazing. The announced crowd was over 52,000. So that was wonderful. They set the record.
Before you go on, Dave, let me get into that a little bit. So when they had the attendance, did you see a lot of empty seats, or was it actually...
Yeah, there were a lot of people out and about.
Okay.
So it's really difficult to tell, especially the West Concourse, or whatever they call it, open.
Oh, the open? Yeah.
There were a lot of people hanging out up there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to tell how many people were there and how many weren't. I mean,
I would say if their gate, if they had 45,000 people that went through that gate, I think that would be on the upper end of an estimate to how many people were there.
I mean, my concern with this whole thing was I know they had technically sold all the seats,
right?
But how many did they actually end up giving away to people?
So and we'll never know.
We'll never know that.
No.
Yeah.
So my concern for this game was always if they gave away too many and those people never showed up, it's going to look terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
ESPN really didn't show. I watched it. They didn't show much of this. Upper decks.
Yeah, and
not a lot.
And when we say there was plenty of empty seats, don't get me wrong, don't get us wrong. It looked great. It was fantastic to see the upper bowl basically filled up and covered throughout. In fact, it's more people than have been to a Golden Gophers football game this year. That's for sure.
I know that.
They haven't come close to that sellout mark. Not even for the Iowa game, which I missed. But I was talking to my friend, and he said, no, they didn't sell that out.
But when they play Wisconsin there, it's always sold out.
It usually is.
Yeah. So the atmosphere was good, guys.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
my goodness.
Tied it up.
Stop everything.
Well, maybe we should start doing these podcasts during the games.
Exactly.
Because obviously they're coming back now.
It's funny, we started this podcast because we thought the game was over, and now here we are. It's a 2-2 draw in the 77th minute, so there's still time to steal a win.
But
and it's Calvo who's scoring the goals, which is incredible.
But again, this game for both sides does not matter anymore. We're just pretty much playing for pride now.
And, maybe that's part of it because...
Look at that.
Yeah, that was pretty... And maybe part of it is because Columbus was sitting in the locker room knowing that they already clinched their playoff spot.
Yeah.
They had nothing
off the gas.
They had nothing to gain.
They had nothing to win.
But I don't want to... Let's not lessen it anymore. I think this is exciting to actually see a draw on the road now.
It is.
There's a lot a time left.
There's a ton of time left.
While we're watching this, I'm going to reiterate that Francisco Calvo is not a center back.
No.
He's a left back.
Yes.
I mean, again, that was some pretty decent footwork to get that shot off.
And
he's got to be up there. He's got to be.
Calvo has come on since they made those switches.
Yeah.
Back earlier in the season. We talked about this in earlier podcasts. We didn't like when he was a center back at all because he made too many mistakes.
I mean, he literally lost 4 games on his own.
Mm-hmm. So, back to last week's game against the LA Galaxy. I guess I was disappointed because I thought the Loons would come out and kind of give 110% the last game at TCF Bank, give the fans something to walk away from and say, hey, we had a good time at TCF Bank. They had a great home record this year. But once again, we couldn't do it.
And that's when I brought up the attendance. That's what I was kind of going towards. It's like it's amazing how quickly that 52,000 or 45,000 people can be silenced because as it did start out a bit exciting, and we'll go into a little bit further detail with David Sterling's notes, but I mean, there was some early missed chances, and we'll go into them specifically later. But that really hurt, and you just started to get that feeling. Another missed chance, another opportunity blown, and then it wasn't going to be long before we're going to give up that first goal. And we all know our record when giving up a first goal.
We're terrible.
It's very bad.
And we talked about this before the podcast, guys, and I brought it up. I said this year's been all about missed opportunities for this team. This team has. Every game we've watched this year, whether it be a win or a loss or a draw, there have been so many missed opportunities where goals should have been scored, or a defender should have been somewhere where he was. It's just been a bad year.
Agreed.
So many mistakes, So, Dave, how about we get into the notes from the game from last week? First goal scored by
Slayton.
Yes. Which I have to announce that I was watching on ESPN at home. The announcers brought the fact that there were 50,000 people at the United game to see Slayton play.
And that's based off of his comments.
Earlier
in the week.
But ESPN did nothing to say, well, that was a joke. They just basically said, this is why they're here.
Oh, and I'm pretty sure Zaitlin, he was on Sports Center with Scott Van Pelt. ESPN was selling up the game, and it was because of him. He was on the road traveling.
Right. And that's why they put it on ESPN to begin with.
Of course.
Sure, there were playoff implications, but in the end, it was because it was late.
Yeah, it was late.
You would like to think it was the hashtag 50K to Midway in the last game of the season for the United at TCF Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. That's not what they were selling it.
And I'll get into my notes from the broadcast after Dave talks about his stuff, but I had some issues with the broadcast from ESPN. And, I'll say it really quickly here. The difference between watching a game on ESPN and watching it on FSN is like night and day. Because, of course, it's our home network, FSN is, but they do a lot of things better than ESPN does, I think. So